Hello and welcome to another video. This week, as you know, I'm a bit unscripted when I do my videos. I speak about what's come off the top of my head, and this week I want to talk about Pathfinder and how I find it as a gamer who's an OSR gamer and also a 5th edition player. I tried out Pathfinder with my friends the other week and I enjoy it. I really did enjoy it. It's got a 3-action economy at its core. What that means is you get 3 actions a turn. One action can be move, another action can be hit, another action after that can be hit, or it can be you want to tackle someone to the floor, it can be you want to trip someone up, it can be shout an insult and scare someone. Any action you can think of, but nearly everything in the game costs an action to do. And I found that really interesting and I enjoyed that. And then you've got all the classic classes in the old core book because there's a remaster of it. The old core book has the classic classes like the cleric and the paladin, who's called a champion in this, and a wizard and a barbarian and a sorcerer and a fighter and a rogue and so on. So on, what you'd expect to find. And it's just reflavored in that nice way with a twist. And what the twist, I like to use the word twist, I'm finding, but what I like about it is that in Pathfinder, you can use skills in combat. For example, it's an intimidation check in combat, but you get a skill where you can make someone scared of you, and you can use that. Whereas in Dungeons and Dragons, you wouldn't think to do that in combat. That they get a disadvantage. Well, not disadvantage because that doesn't exist in Pathfinder, but they get a minus to their modifiers because they're scared of you in Pathfinder. Whereas in Dungeons and Dragons, that action isn't codified into the rules. In Pathfinder, that action is codified into the rules. There is a bit in Pathfinder which says specifically, paraphrasing here, but if you shout at someone and you want to intimidate them in combat, it is going to have this mechanical effect. Now, nothing in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons or an OSR game is going to stop you asking the DM, can I shout at this person? And they might make you make a charisma check. Or a strength check if you're trying to intimidate them or something, and then maybe they'll say, oh yeah, and they'll fiat it, and it can be fiated away. But with Pathfinder, it is codified into the rules. Nearly most things you can think of doing, well, not swinging upside down from a chandelier, juggling maybe isn't in there, but most actions that you can think of are codified as a rule with a mechanical effect for the referee, the dungeon master, whatever you want to call them, to follow. And that is, for some people, a very nice thing, because they can say, oh, this action is covered, and that action's covered. Some people might think that's too much rules for me. But then again, as with OSR games, as with 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, there is nothing stopping you ignoring what you don't like, to a certain extent. Because Pathfinder is also very much reliant on its math to keep it going. So for example, encounters in 5th edition, early on, I think they can be sort of more balanced with the modifiers that you get. However, later on, it goes a bit out the window, I'm finding, with 5th edition, and you can think, oh god, these encounters were too hard. In Pathfinder, every encounter of the party's level and around that is built to be a bit of a challenge, and it can knock people out. For example, the wizard in the latest game I had got knocked down by another wizard who fired magic missile 3 times. Because you can cast magic missile and all 3 bolts can go into someone at level 1 in this. But they can do the same to you. So combat can be, I find, a bit more swingy. People can get knocked a bit more in Pathfinder. They can knock the enemy a lot more, and the enemy could knock them a lot more if the enemy hit them. It's a lot more swingy, I find, and it's more dangerous, but I like that. I've moaned about danger in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. I've moaned about I don't think there's enough danger in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. In Pathfinder, you can get knocked over, and then basically you get what's like a dying score, and so you can't keep getting repeatedly knocked over and just get up like nothing happened. You can between combats where people can treat your wounds, but during combat you can't get knocked over lots of times because you're going to die, basically, is what's going to happen. And obviously this isn't an in-depth reel where I'm going through everything. Of course, this is a quicker one, but I wanted to say this because I like Pathfinder. I like it a lot. I like 5th edition a lot, but I like Pathfinder and its 3-action economy, the 3 actions you get to take. And I like the fact that the combat might be a little bit more deadly. And I like the fact that the healing's not so rampant, though you can heal yourself back up to full as well, but it's not so easy just to get back up in the middle of combat like nothing's happened. And there's a bit more at stake. I like the differences in the builds, and I like the fact that just a 1 or 2 point bonus to your dice roll can really make the difference with crits, because crits in this aren't just a natural 20. If you get 10 or more of the target number you need to hit, or 10 or less, it's a natural crit or a full failure. And then so the damage is coming out a lot more. There's a lot more damage in Pathfinder because people are critting a lot more. And I like it. I really do like it. And people may moan about the actions being codified, but this is just literally, there's a rule for if your character wants to do that, and you'll do the same in 5th edition. You might want to say, I want to trip somebody up. Well, in Pathfinder, there's a rule specifically to trip someone up. In D&D 5th edition, you might say make an athletics check against one of their saving throws, constitution saving throw, strength saving throw. Maybe you've tripped them off, and you fiat an effect. In Pathfinder, there's specific effects for these things. And that's the difference, really. Pathfinder is just, there's a lot more, as they say, it's a lot more crunch, a lot more rules behind it. If you don't mind that, it's still a fine game to play, and it's got some great encounter balances in it. What I would say, though, I got the core edition rulebook, and I didn't realise as I got it that there's a new remastered version of it coming out. So I got the old core rulebook, and it has all the classic fantasy classes that you would get in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, or some of the OSR games like Osric with its druid and its barbarian, or Castles and Crusades, for example, which I reviewed recently. Well, I talked about recently, didn't really review that. But you've got those classic classes, sorcerer and wizard, and obviously barbarian and paladin, but a paladin in this is called a champion. Anyway, you've got those classes. Now, what I did find is, so I got the core book, then I got the new remastered core book, and I realised in the new remastered core book, which is a player's handbook basically, it's a player's course, you expect it to be the player's handbook. So coming from a 5th edition OSR style game, I expected the remaster to have the same classes that was in the original core rulebook. So I purchased it. I purchased it online, like a PDF copy. I didn't actually purchase a copy to take home, a physical copy. And the new player core actually doesn't have the exact same classes as the old core. So if you had the old core and you were running a champion, which is a paladin, and a barbarian or a sorcerer in it, if you got the new core thinking, yeah, I'll swap them up and just the updated versions. No, you can't. Well, you can't at the moment, because at the time that this video is published, that book that's in a separate book. That's not coming out till August. That didn't make much sense to me, that those core classes, and they are core classes to Pathfinder, and they were in the old Pathfinder core book, because I owned the first Pathfinder, and the core classes in the old core 2nd edition book, they've missed some out in the new remaster. In the new remaster, they're going to come later, but to me, they're essential classes. Like a paladin or a champion in this is an essential beginning class when you're starting a game. To me, it's one of the main basic classes. A barbarian also, and a sorcerer for a lot of games is one of those main classes. They're not there, and I just found that a bit of a strange decision. Now, I've been told it's being staggered, and there's reasons behind the sorcerer because they want to use dragon lineage. And because with the remaster, they're bringing out a new bestiary, and that has some dragon rules and everything. But to me, it just didn't make sense still. To me, it was just still, these classes were in the old core book. Surely they should be in the new core book. And the second book with the other character classes should be all the old additional ones they had. It'd be like D&D re-releasing the Player's Handbook, which they are, but leaving out some of the classes that were in the original Player's Handbook, and some of the original classes being in a book like Xanathar's Guide to Everything or Tasha's Cauldron. It'd be like putting the Paladin in Xanathar's Guide to Everything or Tasha's Cauldron and just not having it there. I mean, it's an integral class to me, so for me, that's my one little moan about the remaster. So it's not a moan about the system. I like the system. It's my one little moan is just, why aren't the same classes in there? It just doesn't make sense to me. So that's it. And can I also just quickly say after August, when both the books are out and you've just come from D&D, you don't like the remaster of D&D, You think I'll try Pathfinder, so you buy what you think is the equivalent of the player's handbook, and there's not a champion in there, and there's not a barbarian, and there's not a sorcerer in there. You might be like, oh, where are they? And then you figure out, oh, I've got to buy another book to go get those core classes. If Pathfinder is trying to attract people from the old game, I know it's not a deal breaker for a lot of people, but it just seems, why aren't they there? So even, I don't get it. But, I'm sure some people do. But remember, if you've already played Pathfinder and you knew about this and you don't mind, remember, you're at a vantage point where you're already in the game and you know everything. I'm talking about new players getting into it here. Like me, and it has miffed me a bit, which is, a fair point. Anyway, on to this next part. If you like a sort of newer edition game, and this doesn't have that old edition feel because it has that newer edition feel, but it's different to D&D, and it's got more this action economy around it, which is really good. 3 actions per turn, and you get to use those 3 actions in lots of different ways, and it encourages you because it makes you think, yeah, I can trip someone up, yeah, I can shout at them and intimidate them, yeah, I can grapple them. There's, talking about grappling, and there's, oh yes, I can tumble through their legs and go on the other side of them. And it encourages, flanking people and catching them flat-footed and things like that. It encourages all that tactical play. If you enjoy that, I think Pathfinder is a really good shout. And it's free. And I keep going on about things that are free. Pathfinder, you can get the rules for it free, called the Archives of Nethes. It is a site where you get all the rules for it for free. And every single book that has been released for it, you can reference on there for free. You don't get that on D&D. You don't get that on many other things, apart from things like basic fantasy RPG. But everything regarding Pathfinder, you can get online for free. Look at it. Give it a look. Especially the old core is great, because the old core is on Archives of Nethes, and that includes classes like the Champion, Paladin, or the Sorcerer if you want to be the Barbarian. The new one doesn't yet, because they haven't been released yet. However, it's fine. You've still got your core classes and things like that. Anyway, give it a go. Have a look at it. All the best to you. Take care. Bye-bye.